This week, we saw precious metals move lower across the board. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium all finished in the red, while copper was the only major metal to hold up. On the surface, it looks like simple market weakness, but when you compare price action to what governments and central banks are doing in the background, it starts to reveal two very different stories about where metals are headed long term. Good morning, it's today again. Welcome back to Joseph's Reserves. I'm Joseph and I store 20% of my income in the form of rare coins and precious metals. Today we're going to be talking about how the market moved last week, and I will get to that point in the video, but I also want to try something new today. I always start my videos with highlighting and taking notes in the Bible, and I just want to share my thoughts on this exact verse today. In Proverbs 24:27, it says, "Put your outdoor work in order and get your fields ready. After that, build your houses." And I'm not here to preach a sermon, but I think this ties into the thought process behind this entire weekly update series. The idea behind getting your mind right and your understanding of these markets before putting your money into them is something that is highly valuable. So I hope that gives a little bit of clarity into today's verse. Also, congratulations to Wayne Hurd for getting to my comment section first in the last video. Thank you so much for your support. Y'all go down into the comments to find him and start a conversation. So let's go ahead and start with this week's closing numbers. Gold closed this week at $4,156.70. That's down 1.5%. Silver closed at $64.96, which is down 4.69%. Platinum closed at $1,674, down 3%. Palladium closed at $1,280, which is down 2.1%. And copper closed at $6.17.8. That's up 0.6%. So overall, it was a weak week for precious metals. Gold slipped a little. Silver led the downside by nearly 5%. Platinum and palladium also moved lower, but copper actually finished the week a tiny bit higher. And that difference does matter because it suggests that it wasn't just a broad sell-off across all commodities. It looks more like pressure on the precious metals specifically, while industrial demand held up better. A big part of that comes back to the Fed. The Federal Reserve held rates steady this week and kept a higher for longer message in the market. That usually supports a stronger dollar, and a stronger dollar tends to put pressure on the precious metals. So this short-term move makes sense, but when you zoom out and look at what else happened this week, the story gets more interesting. Because while precious metals were falling, long-term behavior from governments didn't really change. We're still seeing central banks adding to their gold reserves. We're still seeing countries bringing gold back home, and we're still seeing gold being talked about as more like a collateral, not just a reserve asset. We're even starting to see new infrastructure being built around moving and storing physical gold. So, on one side, markets are treating metals like trades. On the other side, governments are treating metals like long term assets. And that gap is important. If we look specifically at silver, silver performed the weakest this week. It was down almost 5%. Most of that looks like short term pressure. High rates, strong dollar, and some profit taking after the strong run. But the bigger picture hasn't really changed. Silver still sits in two worlds. It's a monetary metal, but also an industrial metal. And the demand in areas like solar, electrification, AI related infrastructure continues to grow over time. So even though prices are weak right now, the longer term story is still there. Now, Platinum also moved lower this week, down a little over 3%, but the supply picture is still tight. Recently, industry data continues to show declining production in key regions, including North America, which is down over 5% year over year. South Africa, the main producer, is still dealing with energy problems, higher costs, and ongoing disruptions. And the key point with platinum is that the supply doesn't adjust quickly. Even if prices move higher, it takes years to bring new production online because of long mine timelines, high cost, and regulations. Recycling also hasn't fully filled that gap, even with these higher prices and better incentives. So, what you end up with is a market where supply is really slow to respond, and that's why platinum can stay tight for long periods even when prices move around. And finally, copper. Copper was the only major metal that finished this week higher. That usually points to one thing: industrial demand is still holding up better than metals tied to financial positioning. So when you put it all together, this week looks like gold fell, but central banks are still buying. Silver fell, but long term demand is still building. Platinum fell, but supply is still tight. Palladium fell, continuing its longer term adjustment, and copper rose, showing industrial demand is still in the picture. So the question becomes, what actually happened this week? Prices have changed, sentiment has changed, positioning has changed, but the bigger long term story didn't really move. And that's the part that I pay attention to. There's a difference between the price of the metal and the role that the metal plays. This week, prices move lower, but the role these metals play as money, as industrial inputs, and as long term stores of value hasn't changed at all. And that's what I'm watching. Not just what moved this week, but what still matters underneath it. I've been hearing a lot of talk from other channels and even from analysts saying that this is a bottom and we are about to start going into a peak. So if you believe that, let me know down in the comments. If you think this is just one massive buying opportunity, let me know what you're buying. If you like the video, go down and hit the thumbs up button. Go into the comment section to start or continue conversations down there. Share the video with someone you think may like it, and subscribe if you haven't already. To my long-term subscribers, thank you so much for your continual support. And of course, go check out my website, josephsreserves.com, for any merchandise, coffee mugs, zip-up bags, and of course, the It's Today Again coffee. But most of all, thank you so much for watching. And just remember, every ounce adds up, so no matter how small, just keep stacking.